Hello, credit union community. Here are your 3 topics for today's show. First up, credit unions are spending nearly $500 to acquire a new member. Is that cost too high? Then, in a world pulling your attention in 100 different places, how can credit union leaders stay focused on what matters most? And finally, if you could wave a wand and make one credit union pain point disappear forever, which one would you choose and why? Welcome to Grow Your Credit Union, the podcast where credit union leaders gather, learn, and grow. I am your host, Joshua Barkley. Joining me today in the co-host chair is the CIO at Security Plus Federal Credit Union, Ray Reagan. Hello, Ray.
Hey, Josh. It's awesome to finally get to sit down with you. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was incredible. I took down like 3 turkeys. People were looking at me like, dude, you need to stop eating as much as you have. So that's kind of how I roll. I don't eat for about a week, and then I show up to Thanksgiving ready to feast. Ray, you are brand new as a co-host, so just for the listeners out there, give us like a 30-second elevator pitch on who you are outside of being a credit union executive. Kind of what do you like to do outside of your work life?
Well, Josh, it may be of interest to know that I'm actually an Army Reserve officer. That's what I do with a lot of my free time. And that has actually taken me down the road of working in AI. I had the opportunity to work on the Army AI Task Force, now the Army AI Integration Center. And that actually gave me some real hands-on experience with AI that just happens to be really timely with everything that's happening right now in the credit union and financial institution space. And quite honestly, that keeps me very busy on the weekends. I actually do code, and I am elbows deep in this stuff and also working on the regulatory and compliance side. So we, as credit union leaders, can actually unlock the value that AI really has to offer.
For the listeners out there, we're not sure if Ray is human or not, but it doesn't matter because he's going to bring the knowledge that you need to hear. Today's guest is brought to you by our sponsor, PFP Services. You will hear more about them later in the show, but it's time to introduce our guest, Ray. She's the SVP Chief Operating Officer at MECU Credit Union, Kathy Day Shelton. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
A recent CU Insight piece by strategist Karen McGoffey reports that the average acquisition cost is about $489 per new member. And then I also read something in the Financial Brand that credit unions are losing around 15% of their members every year. So that means if each one costs nearly $500 to acquire, and then we're losing 15%, that is a huge leak in the growth bucket. So Kathy, given that level of churn, do you see a $489 acquisition cost as too steep an investment? Or is the real challenge finding ways to extend member lifetime value?
So Josh, I would say that that is a steep amount, but as a credit union and a not-for-profit, of course, we need to focus on who we are. And so as a credit union, we don't measure our members by dollars. And so we look at how we can engage them, how we can improve their lives, how we can be part of that financial journey. And so although it is a steep cost, we don't measure our members by dollars.
What would be the big measure for you, Kathy, in terms of whether or not you're succeeding, let's say, for your members? Like if I come at you and I said, Kathy, what is one metric that showcases to you personally member satisfaction? What would that be?
I think the big measure for me would be if we are retaining those members, if we're engaging those members in additional services, if we are along for that member journey. Ray and I both, we work in a community that is low to moderate income. A lot of our population is low to moderate income. Some of the individuals that we serve are in the community are unbanked and underbanked. And so if we were able to go along with them for their financial journey and improving their lives, making a better life for them, that is a goal for us.
That is very admirable, Kathy. I'm glad that you pushed back on me on the dollars, because that is not the full story when it comes to member satisfaction. Let's kick it over to you, Ray. Same question. The article states that the acquisition costs $489 per net new member acquired. Let's frame it back at the top. Do you think that that is too expensive of a cost? Yes or no? Let's just start there.
Well, so the answer is yes, but I mean, the frank truth of it is that's the competitive market. And Kathy is absolutely right. We don't measure members in dollars, but we also do consider whether or not we're creating those referable experiences. And I like to talk about this a lot. Is a member so happy with the credit union that they're going to go out there and say, let me tell you about my credit union? Because ultimately that's what it's about. And that's where you really get that compounding growth. Kathy, I'm really excited to hear more about how you're approaching this. Within our credit union, we're looking at creating those referable experiences. And as you and I both know, we've just gone through this government shutdown, and it's definitely had an effect on our membership. And it's times like this that we can really make those referable moments that somebody can go out there and say, let me tell you about my credit union.
So Ray, when you're talking about these referable moments, is that in and of itself one of the big metrics that you're honing in on right now is referrals and things of that nature?
That's part of the metric, right? Of course, everybody uses Net Promoter Score, which is supposed to measure that. But what it is, it's a deliberate process about creating that member loyalty in order to have those referable moments. That's what NPS is really all about, is in that moment when a member has an opportunity to talk about their credit union, we want that member to be able to say, hey, I just had an awesome experience. Hey, my credit union just exceeded everything I expected. And those are the moments that somebody comes back to the credit union as a new member based off that reference. And it takes creating those experiences. And it's not an accidental process.
I certainly agree. With us, if the member is staying around for that financial journey, then that's saying to us that they're happy with what they're receiving from us. And so certainly being able to refer someone, refer a friend, refer a family member, that's the goal.
In a recent Philosophy Now article called A Crisis of Attention, author Paul Doolin describes how we've entered what he calls an age of distraction. And in this same article, there was a quote from a former Google strategist turned philosopher. Yes, I know, that's interesting. His name is James Williams, and he calls the fight to reclaim our focus the defining moral struggle of our time. So I know in credit unions or any leadership role, you've got to balance people, performance, purpose, mission. So Kathy, in a world that's constantly demanding our attention, how do you personally find quiet time for creativity, focus, and reflection?
Well, whether it's personal or whether it's work, everyone is always looking for balance. And there is certainly competing priorities at work that distract you. I sometimes have been criticized as being kind of anal with the structure that I like. I'm very fortunate that I have a very seasoned team that deals with the daily things like performance and staffing. So that gives me the opportunity to look at things like the strategic plan and making sure that we're focused on meeting those initiatives. And so I have the opportunity, because I have such a seasoned and strong staff, to be able to pull things out like the strategic plan and bring my team's focus to that. We meet every single month. We talk about initiatives. We talk about projects. I have one-on-one. And although I have been accused of being a little anal at sometimes, I look at that as a strength when it comes to being able to focus.
And what about quiet time, Kathy? Like for you, like meditation, yoga. Where do you go to just have peace of mind and quiet? Is there any activity that you pursue that just gives you that time to block out everything?
I don't think that there is anywhere I go to block out everything, all of it, but I think I do a good job at having work-life balance. I have a very demanding job, but, when I go home, and certainly I can't say the phone doesn't ring sometimes when I go home because it does, and I'm sure you all know how that goes. But I think that I've done a good job with balancing work and balancing home, and balance the two of them. And I've been in this field for a long time.
Okay, so the balance, work-life balance, understanding how to turn that on and off. Ray, for you, when you're not doing stuff in the Army or when you're not a credit union executive, what are you doing to find that creativity, that quiet time?
Yeah. So firstly, Josh, let me commend Kathy. It's so easy for leaders not to be thinking about the strategic plan and where you're at and where you're accomplishing, just because that's actually how you move an organization forward. And so, Kathy, I absolutely commend you that you led off with that as part of this. And it reminds me of, Steve Jobs used to say that the most strategic word is no. And he used to have what he called no space. And what that was like literally no distractions. And it goes back to what you were talking about, Josh, is having that centering space to really like let your brain just kind of ruminate on everything that happened in the day, happened in the week, happened in the month, and think about where you need to go. Because it is a process, and it's not one that I'm sure that you could probably structure, but to have that kind of opportunity to just let your brain just chew on all this data that's taking in on a daily basis and be able to come up with those really deep and introspective insights that only come with those moments when you've actually had a time to internalize and chew on all of that complex data. That's where the really interesting things happen, because otherwise it really starts getting into that whole point of reaction. And there's a whole body of science behind this. And, so I thought it was really cool when we sat down and we were talking about the topics we were going to discuss today, that to see something like this that really is coming out of this emerging science as we've really entered into this crisis of attention.
And so for you, to put you in the hot seat, give me how that would look like in a day in the life for you.
So, Josh, my quiet time is when I'm running or swimming. You will never find a better Zen moment than when you're into a couple hundred meters of your swim. And it's just because all it is stroke, stroke, breathe, stroke, stroke, breathe. And it gives you a lot of chance to really think about everything that's happening.
I like it. I did not expect the swimming out of you, especially with your circuitry the way it is. We know that you might know. For more than 50 years, PFP has worked exclusively with the credit union industry to grow membership, drive loan and deposit product growth, as well as non-interest income to the bottom line for their partners. That's why they are announcing their groundbreaking 2025 seminar series, Access, Your Credit Union's Currency for Organic Growth. This dynamic seminar, set to take place in select regions across the country, is designed to challenge and transform how credit unions think about their most vital resource, access. With the evolving landscape of financial services, credit unions must assess and elevate their reach and engagement with members. Whether through physical branches, digital avenues, or over the phone, true value is measured by how effectively you connect with the communities you serve. In this seminar, industry leaders will guide attendees through an in-depth personal assessment of their credit union's access points. From broadening your reach to enhancing member experiences, this seminar will empower you with the tools to elevate your credit union's impact, expand your member base, and enhance your connection with the communities you serve. Visit familysecurityplan.com/credit-unions to learn more. That's familysecurityplan.com/credit-unions to learn more. And yes, the link will be in the show notes of this episode. Every credit union leader I talk to has expressed a lot of the same common pain points. Stuff that's been haunting the industry for I don't know, sometimes decades. So imagine I hand you a magic wand, Kathy, and with one wave, you can make one pain point disappear for good. What's the one longstanding credit union operations related pain point you were absolutely sick and tired of and you wish you could make disappear?
I think from the credit union's perspective, one of the pain points that I would like to wave a wand on is cores. Our cores selections is very limited in reference to what we have the opportunity to pick from. They're not as innovative as we need them to be. And so we spend a lot of time and money partnering with other third-party vendors to support that core. And so if I could make that disappear and have a core that could be everything that we need. So it's our online banking core, it's our card core, it's our loan origination core. That's the one that I would pick.
So if Kathy could do away with not the core itself, but maybe let's remove the complexity and make things more accessible, that would be one of Kathy's wishes. So Kathy waved the wand. Ray, I'm going to have you wave the wand as well. You can make obviously a comment on what Kathy said, but then I do want you to wave your wand on the pain point that you want to vanquish.
Yeah. So, Kathy's pain point is mine. And I'm a chief information officer. And every day I feel the limitations of my core and I feel the limitations of the market. And it's kind of funny. I remember a few weeks ago, a bunch of credit union and folks, I was part of this conversation and we were talking about, some of the radical things that could happen with AI. And we were talking about, what would happen if we had a core that was just all AI? What would that mean? And would we even know how it's storing the data? Would we even know how it's interfacing with anything? And the answer is probably no, we wouldn't. I could just imagine what our regulators would think of that. But 20 years from now, I definitely see a future there where it's been that abstracted that it's basically, hey, computer, this member would like to make a deposit. And the computer's like, okay, I got it. No problem. It's unlocking a lot of just crazy capabilities that we're just at the cusp of dreaming. But as far as that magic wand, and Kathy, I think you picked an excellent one to wave the wand on because it is definitely a constraint we're all feeling. The other one that I'd like to wave a wand on is we keep seeing all these surveys coming back talking about Generation Z and millennials and how they prefer to do business with somebody that's engaged in the community. Well, credit unions, that's who we are. Why can't we, if I could wave that magic wand and actually get to the point where on TikTok and Instagram, they're suddenly like, hey, there's this community cooperative for my financial health and interests. And let's go and do financial services with my credit union. That would be the magic wand I'd like to wave because we're doing it. It's just for whatever reason, we just haven't cracked the nut on how to communicate it effectively.
Those are two really good ones, Ray. I like that. So resonating with the youth. We do have an episode coming out soon all about that, actually. Like that, literally the whole thing is about that. So I'm excited to show that to you. We can't wave the wand now, but if there's anything else in terms of a pain point bothering you right now, or maybe one that's not talked about enough, I would give you the open forum to do so.
I would probably say fintechs. In reference to fintechs, as far as not having the same regulatory compliance that we have. I'm not saying I want them to go away, but I want it to be an even playing field because fintechs certainly can bring things to fruition very quickly where credit unions were held to, certain regulation standards. Not having them being regulated, it really, I think, hurts us. Certainly we can collaborate with them and we do, but that would be a pain point that I would kind of work on.
It's that double standard. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah. So, Kathy, I felt this too on both sides of the equation. And, one of the things that I was really hoping to see come out of the NCUA is this concept of the sandbox. Give us a little bit of regulatory sandbox where we could actually go out and play and iterate and innovate at the speed that these fintechs are. Give us a little grace on the regulatory side to allow us to innovate, because we can. It's just when we're dragging this huge weight of all this regulation, it's really hard to innovate because we instantly know that we have to meet all those FFIEC requirements and the NCUA requirements and who knows what else. And to your point, those fintechs don't feel that burden.
Okay, let's move to the wrap up. Actually, before we do, Kathy, I would like to take some time to just briefly talk about your experience with PFP Services, because I know that they're a valued partner. So I think if anybody knows credit unions, it's PFP. So if you could just briefly talk to me about your experience working with them, why you like them, or just anything really that you'd like to discuss.
So we've had a relationship with PFP for the last 25 years. And so initially started in the branches before I actually came to MECU. Then we went to the call center. Then we do digital marketing, or they do digital marketing with us. They do outbound calling. So we have a number of relationships with PFP. We're very fortunate to have that relationship because they're meeting a need for our membership that our members might not have been able to find. You know, again, we serve members of modest means. And so, you know, they're looking for policies, maybe $20,000, $30,000. So that relationship has worked very well for us and very well, certainly for our members.
That's great. I love it. PFP Services, sponsor of today's show, sponsor of many shows. We're a huge fan of them. Let's move to the wrap up, Kathy. Final thoughts. Anything you want to talk about could be something pertaining to what we discussed today, could be something that you just want to throw out there, but give us your final thoughts.
As a credit union, certainly we're here for our community. We're here to improve their lives. And like Ray, I wish more younger people understood that. And Ray, I do believe that we're going to be able to crack that code and they will eventually understand that.
That's great. I like that. Ray, I'm going to ask you the same thing now. Final thoughts. Kathy had some good ones there. I do wish younger people would understand what a financial cooperative really means and how it could actually vastly improve their lives and the lives of those in their community. With that said, your final thoughts.
Josh, I really see us at a point of inflection, and that is, as we're approaching this age of AI, the NCUA has made some pretty good signals that it's okay to actually embrace it, to test it, to play with it, just so long as you have the risk understood and the controls in place. I do see this as that inflection point, and so it's my hope that as credit union leaders start entering into this age of AI, that they do so with managed risk, but they don't delay. Because as Kathy pointed out, the fintechs are iterating and innovating, and they are all in on AI. And if we don't continue to move at that same pace, it's going to be harder and harder to compete.
And Ray, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
Sure. So the best way is to email me at ray.reagan. And yes, I'm aware that it's not spelled correctly. It's RAGAN at securityplusfcu.org. Thank you.
Very cool. I want to thank you, Kathy, because busy credit union leaders come on the show, and I know they have a very, very busy, kind of intense life. So Kathy, thank you for coming on the show. Ray, thank you for being an awesome co-host. One day I'll find out whether or not you are in fact a human or a robot. Lastly, and I mean, certainly not leastly, I would like to thank PFP Services. If you are interested in learning more about them, we will put links in our show notes. So if you're listening to the episode, you just go to the show notes and we will have links directly there for you. Remember, if you like the show, please follow us on your podcast player of choice. If you would like to be a guest or would like to talk about sponsorship opportunities, head to growyourcreditunion.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.